Hot off the release of Yakuza 0 in 2015, series director Toshihiro Nagoshi announced on September 15, 2015 at Tokyo Game Show that Ryoga Gotoku Studios were working on both a remake of the first Yakuza, titled Yakuza Kiwami, and the next entry in the mainline Yakuza series, Yakuza 6 The Song of Life. Yakuza Kiwami would get a January 21st release the following year, and at TGS 2016 in September, gameplay for Yakuza 6 would be unveiled in the game's brand new game engine, the Dragon Engine. This engine allowed Kiryu Kazuma to interact with the environment in more ways than ever before, like climbing ladders, sneaking into crevices, and walking into convenience stores, all without loading times. The Dragon Engine would also introduce a new combat system that heavily focused on physics, allowing for a realistic take on fighting. I mean, if you call this realistic. Kamurocho has never looked better, and with the game also boasting an all-star cast of renowned Japanese actors such as Takeshi Kitano, things were really shaping up for Yakuza 6, and the game would be slated for a December 2016 release for a Japanese audience. Overseas wouldn't get a taste of the Dragon Engine until February of 2018 in the form of a demo for Yakuza 6, until it was eventually pulled off the PSN store when Sega accidentally released the full game along with it, only for it to be re-released a month later. Then, on April 17th, 2018, Yakuza 6 The Song of Life received a full worldwide release. So, how does the game fare? Kinda clunky, I gotta say. So there's a whole laundry list of technical problems and overall missing features with Yakuza 6. For instance, the game runs in 900p resolution on a standard PS4, and staple locations of Kamurocho like the Champion District and the Hotel District are closed off as they're quote-unquote under construction. I can only attribute these issues as Sega pushing out a product that desperately needs more time to be polished, but if we're talking just the revamped fighting system, all the fundamentals that make up Kiryu's combat in Dragon Engine games are all there, just in a less polished package. Like previous entries, you have your standard rush combos and heavy attacks that, when paired at any point in a rush combo, deliver a variation of finishing blows. What the Dragon Engine does is allow for directional attacks during a rush combo, letting Kiryu turn 360 degrees to attack enemies from behind them, making it really effective against crowds. Certain attacks will leave enemies in a staggered state, giving you the foundation for your offensive. Should you quick step behind them and attack where they can't block, or trip them if they decide to guard, you're given a lot of flexibility in how you approach your next move. Returning from Yakuza 5 is the evolution of the Dragon Spirit mode, called Extreme Heat mode, which taps into Kiryu's heat gauge and envelops him in blue flames, making him stronger and taking less damage. Kiryu will automatically pick up whatever object is around him when attacking, much like the Beast style in Yakuza 0, which is hit or miss, especially when trying to land a certain attack and a motorcycle gets in the way. Spamming a rush combo or delivering a finishing blow in this state will trigger a QTE heat action that will deal massive amounts of damage. Speaking of heat actions, Yakuza 6 actually doesn't have that many compared to older games, but they included Krav Maga style techniques and professional wrestling moves, which if you're into those, they're pretty cool to see. But I haven't even gotten to the best part about the Dragon Engine, which is Kiryu's ability to fling enemies across the pavement after a grab. It's nothing new to Kiryu's Dragon style, but the way the Dragon Engine does it, I could do this for hours. Seriously. This is the groundwork that would make up Kiryu's combat up till Kiwami 2, a remake of the second Yakuza, also in the Dragon Engine, which gives Kiryu charge attacks and smoother gameplay in an overall polished engine. Having made many improvements with the Dragon Engine, where would RGG Studios go from here? With Yakuza 6 being Kiryu's last game, and Yakuza 3 not having aged poorly enough to warrant the Kiwami treatment, who would fill Kiryu's shoes and how would they play? Well, we wouldn't get that answer a whole 4 years later with Yakuza 7, but in the meantime, we got something else. Something interesting. What we got was Judgement. Enter Takayuki Yagami, or Tak as his close friends call him. A Kamurocho-based detective, he's a lot more nimble than Kiryu, and a lot less imposing at that. What he lacks in muscle mass, he makes up for being quick and agile. He retains much of Kiryu's movesets, but instead of flinging enemies around after a grab, Yagami has a leapfrog maneuver or a wall jump plus circle attack where Yagami will cling onto enemies' heads with his legs and spin them into surrounding foes. Making a return from Yakuza 0 and Kiwami are multiple fighting styles, this time Crane and Tiger stance, based on real-life kung fu martial arts. While it's made very clear from the get-go that Crane is more catered towards handling groups, and Tiger is best used against singular enemies, the game doesn't restrict you from experimenting with both on the fly. I mean, with a move like this, how could you not? The game even lets you juggle enemies while mixing and matching fighting styles, and while I haven't been able to pull this off myself, seeing it in action is a sight to behold in an RPG game. These new additions would open up the combat in ways I never thought was possible. I'm playing the game on hard where Yagami loses a lot more health when being hit, and I'm finding myself singling out enemies in a crowd or waiting for the opportune moment to strike against stronger opponents. I play it in a way that I think is reflective of Yagami's physical stature, and there's enough that make him stand out from being a carbon copy of Kiryu in a different model. But while I want to dive a little deeper into Yagami's fighting style, there's something or someone I have to address. I want to talk about a little character called Masayoshi Tanamura. Oh, and spoilers for Yakuza 4 and a bit of 5. If you haven't played those yet, click on this timestamp. Tanamura is a cop, introduced in the first chapter of Yakuza 4 during Shun Akiyama's part, investigating the homicide of a Yakuza lieutenant by the hands of Akiyama's friend Arai. He quickly leaves the scene and later on gets his own playable section, blah blah blah. Did I also mention he's a cop? But when I first started playing as Tanamura, I initially didn't like him. I found that his attacks were way too slow and it left him too wide open in any normal circumstance. But as I started playing as him more, I quickly grew to enjoy his heavy emphasis on parrying and submission, and I ended up liking his story a lot. But his combat scenarios? So I look at combat in two categories, a technical level and a narrative level. On a technical level, Kiryu is a beefcake, so he's going to fight like a beefcake. On a narrative level, Kiryu is a dragon of Dojima. It's his story, so he's going to overcome almost every obstacle. I briefly touched on Tanamura's combat on a technical level, but Tanamura on a narrative level is some bullshit. And this is coming from someone who excuses a lot of bullshit from the Yakuza series. I excuse rubber bullets, I excuse every single time Kiryu just stands there when the bad guy reaches for the gun that everyone chose to ignore. Hell, I even excused that part in 5 where they said, hey, let's duke it out on the rooftops because we're all horny for a fight. Doesn't mean I didn't think those moments were stupid, I just fully embrace it for what it is. But what I don't excuse is when a character is given way too many foes or way too strong of foes that character shouldn't be able to handle on their own. And Tanamura is that character. Like, they at least gave Akiyama appropriate foes, and he has bad posture. But you're telling me this string-being twink of a cop took on 10 highly trained bodyguards and a crusty deputy shooting bullets at him? Also, who the fuck designed this? So, why do I bring him up? Because unlike Tanamura, Yagami is put into situations that actually make sense on a narrative level. Having been taught kung fu from his father, he would later move to Kamurocho and adopt his own Kamurocho style from scrapping on the streets, and as we all know, the streets are what toughen you up. When Yagami has to fight someone twice his size, he's able to overcome them through perseverance, but is not without a few scrapes and bruises. Even in gameplay, when you try to leapfrog over stronger opponents, they will easily toss Yagami back, forcing you to switch other options. When Yagami has to fight large groups of enemies, the game will usually pair him up with one of his buddies to fight along with him. While it would have been fun to fight them all on your own, it wouldn't make sense narratively if Yagami just suddenly became a one-man army. What stays consistent is that Yagami is portrayed as the underdog, as he has to get out of situations by thinking on his feet, much akin to a Jackie Chan flick. Like Jackie, Yagami is not the strongest, but it's you as the player that has to get creative with his toolbox. In fact, this entire game feels like a Jackie Chan film, not even mentioning the obvious nod to Drunken Master. Like this guy, he does a little angry dance when you break out of his grab. That's kind of like a Jackie Chan movie, I guess. So if Yagami's fighting style accurately depicts his physical stature, how will RGG Studios portray someone filling in the role that Kiryu left behind? Someone that's equal in size, taking on the responsibilities of the new dragon? Well, enter Kasuga Ichiban. Back when Like a Dragon got announced under the name Shin Yakuza, all we got was a character trailer and a striking personality. I pondered what Ichiban's fighting style would be like, and how winning his battles would play out. Would he be a protagonist that loses his fights? Likely not. Would he be a protagonist that kills? Most definitely not. But they were all still questions worth asking for the new protagonist. I ultimately just didn't want Ichiban to be another beefcake that plowed through his enemies. So when it was revealed that Yakuza 7 would be a turn-based JRPG, I don't know how to write this. Needless to say, I'm excited as fuck. It is from my understanding that Ichiban has a wild imagination, where he perceives his fights as a turn-based role-playing game, due to his infatuation with Dragon Quest, but the context in which battles play out still remains. Ichiban won't win his fights on strength alone. He's going to need his friends along with him. It's his ragtag band of misfits that's going to make Ichiban number one, and that's just a concept I can get behind for the Dragon of Rock Bottom. So that about wraps it up. I want to make a huge shout out to Dante Devil 12 for letting me use his gameplay footage and giving pointers on how the Dragon Engine works. He's got a lot of big brain plays of the Yakuza games along with many others, where he absolutely finesses his opponents. This video took a lot of forums, and it was going to be a lot meaner towards Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2, but after seeing his videos, it really opened my eyes to just how in-depth the combat was even before Judgment, and I had to revise my script, so definitely check out his videos. Coming off my last video, this one took the absolute best out of me, and I was even debating on even releasing this because of how much I hate my own voice. And I'm still getting a hang of making video essays, but there's still more to come, so stay tuned, I guess.